Hi. Hi. Welcome to the Contested Long Twos podcast, episode 4. Today, we're going to talk about the trade deadline because today was the trade deadline and deadlines. And not that much going on right now. What do you say, Ethan?
Yeah, it was a pretty mellow trade deadline.
Mello's still on the
Melo's still in the Knicks,
Sorry.
yes. No, so not a lot of moves, a few minor things here and there. Teams ducking the luxury tax. Memphis acquiring crazy people.
Yeah.
I think it will set up this summer to be very eventful.
Yeah, not much is being broken right now. And a lot of times, following trade deadlines end up just being a really fruitless endeavor. A lot of times you want something good to happen, but you end up just sitting on Twitter, looking at the fact that Jeff Green was traded for Lance Stevenson and a future first, and then seeing about 40,000 jokes about how, Lance Stevenson and Birdman and Zach Randolph and Tony Allen and Matt Barnes, like how many
PJ Hairston.
And PJ Hairston, and like all like weird, scary guys, and it's like, how many times can people make a joke out of the same fact? And the answer seems to be infinite.
Yeah.
Because there's still jokes on here that are still waiting to be made, and that's what trade deadline ended up being for me. That and listening to The Vertical, which is the Yahoo basketball people, have their trade deadline show, and which was led by, Captain Obvious himself, Chris Mannix. And Woj, who was just in the corner kind of checking his tweets like the nerd he is. And then Scal also being Captain Obvious. And Bobby Marks being like, I was a GM once. So, yeah, that was the trade. That was at the trade deadline afternoon for me in a nutshell. But there are a few trades that we can, I guess we could talk about.
I think the more interesting ones were the trades that didn't happen. And especially Dwight Howard. Apparently Milwaukee was interested. But because he's going to be a free agent this summer, they weren't going as hard after him.
Can I tell you something that will make you sad?
Yeah.
That's pretty much how Chris Mannix started his show.
I mean, it's true though. Like,
no, I know, I'm kidding.
Fine. You can note the same things.
I guess you can. I guess you are at the same thing, following the league, at the same league.
Yeah, like the Rockets were trying to trade a guy who was like second in MVP voting a few years ago. And there's no suitors. That's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. The expiring contract definitely plays a role in that somehow. I'm surprised that the Bucks were looking at him, honestly.
I mean, like, if you can get a guy that good...
Yeah, they seem to just have their nose around everything. 4 new tweets. Probably nothing. Yep.
I don't think there's going to be any more breaking news like an hour after the deadline passed.
Right, yeah.
Usually
probably not.
Like, I remember the Michael Carter-Williams trade happened like 10 minutes after. Like,
right.
the half an hour window is usually your best.
Yes.
In terms of late stuff.
Yeah, so we'll talk first about the Jeff Green for Lance Stevenson trade, because that was kind of like the placeholder for the big blockbuster everyone was waiting for. And then I just was scrolling Twitter, I saw like 20 new tweets. I'm like, what happened? And then Jeff Green to Lance Stevenson. I guess that's kind of cool. I hope there's another cool trade after this. And there wasn't. But at first we thought it was just Jeff Green for Lance. And we were just like, I mean, not that Jeff Green's that good, but you couldn't have gotten more value for him. And then we find out that Doc packaged a 2019 first-round pick for Jeff Green, which is the ultimate Doc move, not only because it shows complete disregard for the future of the franchise. He's figured he'll be fired out of being a GM and coach by then, I guess. But it also entails acquiring someone who he knew from a different time when Jeff Green played 100-plus games for him on the Celtics. And I forget who tweeted it, but he's like, Doc saw Jeff Green play 100-plus games and was still interested in trading for him.
I saw a quote where Doc called Jeff Green one of the best people in the NBA. Like not players, but
that's great. And maybe the Clippers need some of that to kind of dilute the guys who punch equipment managers. But I still don't think he's going to do that much. I mean, obviously, their bench is so bad that Jeff Green is technically an upgrade over what they have. How do you see this team with Jeff Green? I know you're eager to talk about them now.
Yeah, not like okay. They got Jeff Green. What I don't understand is they had a deal in Tate that they rejected. They could have, instead of doing a first round pick and Lance for Jeff Green, they could have done C.J. Wilcox, a second round pick, and Jeff Green and Lance for Channing Frye.
Right.
And I think Channing Frye is better.
Yeah. Channing Frye definitely fills a need that they probably wanted Spencer Hawes to fill a year ago as kind of the stretch big man to play alongside either Blake or DeAndre, take your pick. And Jeff Green is kind of can play big man, but he's not really a stretch big man. He's kind of a guy who can conceivably play the power forward spot, but there's no real advantage to putting him there.
He's kind of like a worse Rudy Gay.
Yeah, that's a great comparison.
Which you don't really want.
You don't want to give up the future first for a worse Rudy Gay. And another cool tweet, because remember, mostly I just saw random facts about this trade and jokes about the Grizzlies on Twitter. 3 teams have given up a first-round pick for Jeff Green. So, yeah, that's a thing. And also, he was the centerpiece of getting Ray Allen to the Celtics. Yeah. So, really, Jeff Green's kind of had his work cut out for him, and needless to say, has failed to deliver. But I don't hate the Clippers acquiring him. I just hate the fact that they're probably going to be bad in 2019, and then they won't own their pick.
Depends on what they do going forward.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a cloudy past. It's just always so easy to think that if a team is mortgaging so much of their future and trying to win now so hard that there's going to be an eventual period where it just collapses. We see that with pretty much every single reckless win now team. And it might not happen because they have Blake Griffin. They might kind of hover around mediocrity as long as Blake is on the team. But you got to be at least a little hopeful, definitely, if you're the Grizzlies, considering how old Chris Paul is.
Yeah, also if you're Toronto, because Toronto has their pick in a few years as well.
Yeah.
Before the Grizzlies do now.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I thought the Grizzlies were pretty interesting today, on the whole.
Yeah.
There's this period, dealing Courtney Lee for, second-round picks, dealing the Jeff Green trade. I think they made one more trade as well.
Yeah, the second-round pick. They put the Jarnell Stokes.
Oh, right.
To the Pelicans.
Oh, that was the Heat. The Heat had him.
Oh,
I guess the Grizzlies didn't make any other moves. But, I thought it was interesting that they sold both of those.
When did Jarnell Stokes go on to the Heat?
The Mario Chalmers trade.
Oh, wow. Got it. Man. All I know about him is he once did a between-the-legs dunk in a game. That's...
that's...
And he played for LSU.
Yeah. So I think that you look at Memphis, they clearly are taking a step back this year, especially with the Marcus Gasol injury. Which is then interesting that they kept Mike Conley. Because Conley's a good point guard and he's going to be a free agent this year.
Yeah, this was their kind of last chance to salvage any of that. And maybe they are confident that Conley will come back. I mean, they're not that bad, and Conley kind of strikes me as a guy who would like to stay in.
Yeah,
Grizzlies kind of like a loyal guy. That's a totally
just random assumption, but it could be true.
Unwarranted assumption, but you don't know. He just seems like that. He went to college with Greg Oden after playing AAU, so I think he's a guy who appreciates his roots.
Yeah,
and I guess that is a valid argument now that I have evidence. But, yeah, I guess they just figured he would stay. Otherwise, he'd be on the Celtics or what have you by now,
or something. Yeah. So that was interesting. The Heat did a good job of saving money, so congrats to them.
Yeah, good for them. Good job, Mickey.
They kept Hassan Whiteside, which is interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess they couldn't find much for him. It's the whole expiring contract thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else?
Not only that, but just the knowledge that you will have to pay
Hassan
Whiteside probably more than he's worth.
Yeah, and deal with him.
Yeah,
which doesn't.
You were saying something though?
The Markieff Morris trade is also in terms of what he could be, a first round pick, DeJuan Blair and Chris Humphries isn't a huge price to pay.
Right.
But this is a guy who was actively sabotaging a team for an entire year, and the fact that Phoenix got a first round pick out of this is kind of impressive.
Yeah. Definitely. Even if he was averaging 20 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists, something crazy like that, with the 5 games under Earl Watson, it's definitely still damaged goods. And you got to think that Wizards could have offered less or something. I can't imagine there was that much competition for Markieff Morris. Or maybe there was, because maybe he was so underrated that his value was slightly overrated.
Yeah.
Potentially, because he was the obvious buy low choice, and that ended up being the asking price, and Suns were able to leverage the fact that he was such an obvious buy low choice to the point where he was actually a somewhat sell medium choice as opposed to a sell low choice.
Yeah. And, like, if it works out for the Wizards, they made a good trade. Because Markieff's a talented player.
At his best, he's the second best player on their team.
Yeah. Or third. Gortat.
Yeah, that's fair. I haven't seen Gortat that much this season, but I'd say Gortat's probably on the whole better.
Yeah. So that they have an interesting squad. They're also, like, chemistry-wise still kind of weird. And
you can't imagine acquiring Markieff Morris will help that.
Yeah, but, it'll be interesting. At least they're trying something.
Did you see Markieff Morris's exit interview?
Yeah. And when he was on the hoverboard?
Yes.
I didn't see the interview. I saw him trip over a parking bump.
Yes.
A speed stop.
That's how he left, and then whoever was with him picked it up for him. He didn't even pick up his own hoverboard. So, I guess I don't know if that's just being so rich that you don't have to pick up your own hoverboard, or if that's a character concern. But obviously, the media will make it out to be a character concern that someone else needs to pick up his hoverboard.
Yeah.
You don't see Marcus Morris making someone else pick up his hoverboard, and he's thriving in Detroit. Who we can talk about right now if you're done with the Wizards. We basically covered all that we can about Markieff. He's a talented player, kind of an unknown entity at this point after pretty much being terrible both as a person and a player all season. So looking forward to seeing what happens in Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Detroit, I guess we can merge this with Orlando. Orlando's the big loser of the trade.
Oh, yeah. Especially seeing how many, mediocre players were moved, or mediocre to good players were moved for way more than they got for Tobias Harris.
Yeah, there were 2 2016 first-round picks moved. One was for Markieff Morris, who didn't try for the entire season. The other was for Montezumas, who's, barely played this season because he had a back injury. And those 2 get first-round picks moved, but Harris gets nothing in terms of a first-round pick? What?
Yeah.
They completely sold low on him. I understand. They got guys in Ersan Ilyasova and Brandon Jennings who expire after this year, which is good things for them so they can pay guys like Evan Fournier. So that, in theory, makes sense. And if you want to move on from Tobias Harris because you want to give more playing time to Aaron Gordon, fine. I get it. But you shouldn't be giving him away for nothing. Nothing going forward. And they pretty much did.
What do you think of them acquiring Donatas Motiejunas from the Rockets?
The Pistons, you mean?
Yes.
I don't mind the trade. I don't love giving up a first-round pick for an impending free agent with back issues, even if he is restricted. So that gives me a little pause. But besides that, I like the idea. If he was healthy and you can get him for a decent contract, then giving up a first-round pick for him is not a bad idea at all. But you have to figure out the health thing.
Yeah, they have a pretty nice 4 big man rotation with Morris, Harris, Motiejunas, and Drummond now. Yeah. So that will be interesting for sure. They're definitely the team I'm going to pay the most attention to because of the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Maybe Clippers to see how Jeff Green will fit in, even though that will probably not look great starting off, or potentially ever, because Jeff Green just isn't that good.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's kind of our fault for, thinking Jeff Green was good, for picking him 5th overall. I don't know if he ever wanted to be, a premier player in this league.
I mean, he's always had potential.
Yeah.
His body, is someone that could turn to an NBA player. He doesn't have a bad shooting stroke.
No.
He doesn't look bad coming out of his hand. It looks bad when it hits the rim a lot. But, so he's a guy that always had potential. You can't really blame yourself for picking him 5th. And
you can't really blame him for scoring 30 points sometime. It's almost like fans were like, "What, Jeff Green, why are you scoring 30 points if you can't score 20 every night?" That's kind of the logic in trying to criticize Jeff Green.
And he's overcome a lot. He overcame a heart issue.
Yeah,
so, good for him. But he's not really going to help your team that much.
No, he's a very average player.
Yeah.
He might even just be below average in terms of how he can help your team. And he never really seemed to get it together on the Grizzlies. I remember watching him in the Warriors series, just looking not really like a basketball player, which is concerning for a guy who was 28 at the time. And yeah, maybe Clippers could do something with him. I'm still not convinced he's better than Wesley Johnson.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, Wesley can shoot.
Yeah, exactly.
And Jeff can't.
And he can, and Wesley's probably a better defender even after spending years on the anti-defense school Los Angeles Lakers. So.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Something I'm interested in the Clippers going forward is, Chris Paul is playing a lot more minutes and has a much higher usage rate than he has in past years, and he's had trouble staying healthy in the playoffs, as is, so on that, taxing him a lot could be really dicey. So I really expect when Blake comes back for him to have the ball a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you want to rest Chris a bit.
Yeah. I think Blake often kind of takes a big load around March and April.
Yeah.
It seems like, or actually, I think he was injured last year around this time, but hopefully that will be the case so that they can give the Warriors a good fight in the second round, because I don't want to be bored until the conference finals in the West.
Yeah. What do you think about Atlanta staying pat?
Oh, what do you mean standing pat?
Oh, yeah, they got Kirk Hinrich.
Yeah, dude. Change the game. I think at this point, Teague and Schroeder are both expendable after... No, I'm kidding. But Kirk Hinrich obviously means absolutely nothing to anything ever. And apparently somebody made a giant mural of Kirk Hinrich in Chicago today after he got hurt. Again, this is mostly what I found instead of actually things I wanted to see on Twitter, just by constantly clicking refresh.
Yeah.
But yeah, Atlanta standing pat is interesting. I think for better or worse, it's because Teague has played so well in past games that they just feel really weird cutting bait with him right now, especially when they have the chance to be. If everybody plays up to their potential, if Kyle Korver kind of gets his stroke back, that they have the potential to be the second best team in the East again. And again, they can't beat the Cavs, but it just doesn't. Maybe it just didn't seem like exactly the right time to break it up when you can just trade some players over the summer. But the problem with that is you won't be able to because they won't be on your team. Al Horford's a free agent. Jeff Teague has a year and a half left, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I guess you could try to trade Paul Millsap if you're going to trade them, but I guess might as well just keep Paul Millsap. Didn't seem like there was a huge market for him or people having the leverage to give up what he's worth. And I don't blame them for standing pat. I think it's the right move right now. I don't think they knew enough to kind of go forward, especially with who was going to be the point guard going forward.
Yeah, and the Horford thing, people, I forget who I was listening to, but people think that the Bird, being able to sign for a fifth year is going to matter a lot to him, and Atlanta has his Bird right, so that'll be really important for that.
Okay, yeah.
And if you look at them, Mike Budenholzer is their main decision maker. They technically have another GM, but Budenholzer's the guy running the show.
Yeah.
And Budenholzer.
What happened to Danny Ferry?
We don't talk about Danny Ferry. No, so Budenholzer's running the show there, and Budenholzer's the guy that came from San Antonio, and San Antonio has been the model for keep all of your guys forever. They've never made a big move. They try to get Jason Kidd once, but besides that, they've signed Rasho Nesterovic.
Yeah.
And obviously LaMarcus, but that's a different situation.
Yeah, LaMarcus, that was very premeditated. They don't just make crazy blockbuster deals.
Yeah.
LaMarcus Aldridge felt like a Spur a full year before he was actually on the team. So They have a weird way of just going about acquiring big names, so that it just seems more of an indoctrination than a crazy deal.
Yeah, so you look at Atlanta, and they have a good thing going. Trading their starting point guard this year wasn't going to make them better. Right. You're not going to get that continuity, and if you don't want to take a step back this year, then you shouldn't be trading people. And they did a good job of not doing that.
Yeah, they definitely are good. They're good enough to justify just keeping it together for one more year. Because if you think Horford's going to resign and you want to resign him, and you're not really in a hurry to trade Jeff Teague, you might want to actually wait to see the draft kind of play out and see what you can get later on. Because it's kind of a toss-up right now which teams, especially in the East, are going to finish where.
Yeah.
You don't know which teams are going to have lottery picks, so if you can hold on to Jeff Teague for another year, no need to trade him now at all.
Unless they got a crazy offer, they probably weren't going to move him, and they didn't get a crazy offer. They somehow managed to say no to Jose Calderon.
Oh, wow. They already have a point guard to Calderon. And are there any other trades that are even worth mentioning? We should talk about the Sixers being part of the Donatas Motiejunas first-round pick deal with Joel Anthony going to the Sixers and a second-round pick. But you don't seem to be focused on what you guys got, rather what you gave up.
Yeah, so we got the Anthony who's going to be cut and a 2017 Denver second-round pick. We unfortunately gave up Choo-Choo Matabaum.
R.I.P.
We got him last year in the JaVale McGee trade, the classic JaVale McGee trade, and he was great for a year. He actually had an interview at one point. We talked about like playing in the D League, so that was kind of cool.
Choo-Choo?
Yeah, and now I think he's either in Detroit or Houston now. Not really sure which one.
Yeah,
he was a great Sixer.
I have a question, and I think this kind of goes into the sound decision-making of the Sixers era. What do you think it says about management and Hinkie that they were able to admit that they lost the Senka-Kill Choo-Choo Matabaum trade and just acquire a second-round pick for Matabaum and not give in to sunk cost fallacy, thinking they needed to turn Matabaum into the next star player, just like Senka-Kill?
Yeah, no, it was a good job of them moving forward. I was really proud that we're able to admit when something's not going to work out. And we all love Choo Choo.
Yeah,
he was classic. He had the funniest jokes ever.
Do you know who he wasn't though?
Senka-Kill.
That's
true.
True.
We had Senk.
Yeah, and
we gave him up.
It's been. I'm sure it's been very tough for you watching him on the Reno Bighorns or wherever he's playing, and seeing the one that got away.
The one that got away. For real though, the Sixers actually saved money by doing this trade because we're now above the salary floor, but don't have to pay Joel Anthony's entire salary.
Okay.
So we save like a few million.
Okay, that's good.
So good for Josh Harris.
Do you think this is a sign, albeit very minimal, that Hinkie still definitely kind of has a say? Because this just seems like this trade just seems like it has Hinkie.
This was a complete Hinkie trade.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the owner's going to say no to anything when it's saving him money and getting him something. So, I don't think Jerry really cared about this one.
Yeah, that's fair. You let Hinkie have power with this one. It seems a lot less suspicious than giving up 2 second-rounders for Ish Smith, which probably actually worked in their favor just because it got idiots to stop paying attention to them because they finally won a game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess this is some saving grace for Sixers fans like yourself that Hinkie can still have freedom to do stuff.
Yeah, to do his second round moves.
Yeah.
It was a big day for all of us.
Yeah.
Did you see the Nick Young thing?
I did not.
He thought the trade deadline was yesterday and came into the Lakers practice today all happy that everyone was still there.
Oh. And everyone's still here, but that's hilarious.
Yeah. Byron's got a quote I don't think that Nick Young pays that close attention to current events.
Byron Scott's a terrible coach.
Oh, yeah.
Just saying. So, I'm really drawing a blank as opposed to, I guess, Shelvin Mack to the Utah Jazz. That's an exciting one, mainly because it reunites Shelvin and Gordon Hayward for everybody's favorite Butler team that almost beat everyone's least favorite 2010 Duke team starring John Shire, Kyle Singler, Nolan Smith. Do you want me to keep going before you regurgitate? Or I don't know.
I mean, just saying it's a Duke team is enough.
Yeah, that's true. I got into a good conversation about my friend who attends Duke, just making fun of them, and how they're basically like everyone else at this point in terms of one and done and not players not going to class. They should stop pretending they're not. But that's for another podcast. So Shelvin Mack to the Jazz.
What do you think about Channing Frye?
Yeah, I don't know why we didn't. I don't know why I didn't think of that one yet. That's definitely an important trade to mention.
Yeah,
Channing Frye going to the Cleveland Cavaliers from Orlando. Varejao going to Portland, and Orlando getting some sort of something.
Orlando gets a second-round pick, and Portland gets a future Cleveland first-rounder.
I'm glad that this was worth stunting Aaron Gordon's growth to play Channing Frye. Good job, Orlando. Basically, you're terrible, and Rob Hennigan is the most confusing man in the league because 1 second he seems like a great GM, and then he does crap like this.
Yeah, so, I don't understand a lot of what they did. They opened up a lot of money this free agency cycle, but like everyone has money this free agency cycle,
it's
and no one wants to play in Orlando.
No, nobody. Disney World sucks.
Like,
Harry Potter Land's okay, but I don't know how many players have read Harry Potter.
What, are people like trying to play with Aaron Gordon because he looks cool in the dunk contest?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And even Harry Potter Land, you still, when it's so crowded, it just loses its effect. You don't feel like you're in Hogwarts. So
right. Yeah, it's such like I just don't understand their thought process at all. And I think that Scott Skiles has way too much power there.
Yeah, you wonder how much he hates Tobias Harris on a scale from a little to a lot. Because, and it's probably a lot, because this is the second time he's traded him pretty much straight up for 2 expiring contracts. I mean, I think the first time was J.J. Redick, and that was great. It made it so that they only lost to the Heat by like 40 in all the 4 first-round games they played as opposed to 50. But that didn't do anything, and this isn't going to do anything either. And Scott Skiles is going to probably miss the chance of another like kind of Tobias Harris renaissance when he starts playing better on Detroit, just because it's not a terrible situation for him.
Yeah, Tobias on Detroit is a really interesting fit. Stan Van is able to get a team that he likes like there pretty quickly. Yeah, they're gonna be. I don't see them ever being like. I mean, unless Drummond takes a step that like I don't like. He's a very good player, obviously, but like takes like an amazing step, and Reggie Jackson even takes a step up. I don't think they're ever going to be like two tiers of a contender.
Right.
But that team will be like top 4 in the East, I think, for a while, and that's not terrible.
I really like the Pistons. I just like the way Stan Van Gundy thinks about basketball.
Yeah,
his 09 teams didn't take any mid-range shots, and that's really fun just to know that a team was thinking that way about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And that he was right all along.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that and the Pistons will be fun to watch when they get everything kind of in motion. They need a backup point guard, but you can live without a backup point guard for a bit.
Definitely.
It's not that essential.
And speaking of backup point guards, the Heat getting Brian Roberts.
Well, they traded him. They got him and then traded him to Portland with a second round.
Oh,
pick.
Really?
Yeah. Brian Roberts is now in Portland.
Wait, what?
So they got by trading Brian Roberts, they don't have to pay the luxury tax.
Yeah, but what did they trade him for?
Like, they traded him and a second round pick for nothing, pretty much. So
that's a steal for Portland.
Yeah, Brian Roberts isn't a bad player.
Yeah. I don't know why I was being a little facetious, which was unfair because I kind of set you up to thinking Brian Roberts. I still think he's very good, but again, I was just trying to make a joke about the trade deadline. But Brian Roberts, I liked him on the Pelicans. I don't really have a memory of seeing him on the Hornets. But you're right. He's an NBA player,
he's
and
fine. He's a good backup point guard.
Yeah,
you can have worse ones.
Yeah,
better
than Tim Frazier.
Yeah, I like the Thunder getting Randy Foye.
Yeah, we should talk about that. That's a good one.
I thought that they dumped money, which apparently will. I don't understand it that well, but they'll be able to sign offer decent contracts for guys that get bought out, which is always an interesting thing to watch. And Randy Foye's a pretty a good 2-way player, a solid backup, a good 8th, 9th man off the bench, and should help them. And they lost 2 second-round picks, and they traded DJ Augustine and Steve Novak, so pretty much nothing. And I like that for them.
Yes. The best thing you can say about Randy Foye is that he isn't Dion Waiters.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It makes you play Dion Waiters less. It makes you rely on Andre Robertson less because, Andre Robertson's shooting has been so horrific.
Non-existent.
Yeah. And he, Randy Foye can do enough to be okay, you can play him in the playoffs.
Yes. It's not the most appealing thing, and you wonder why they didn't just go after Courtney Lee and let the Hornets get him for pretty much nothing. But...
Well, they would have to give up, I guess, Mitch McGarry would probably... Cause it's would you rather have Mitch McGarry or who they get? P.J. Hairston in the second-round picks?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Probably Mitch McGarry, just because I'm afraid of P.J. Hairston because he drives stolen cars.
Yeah, also, you never... a lot of what happens in the NBA is relationship-driven. Who knows what GM. And I could see, the Thunder and the Grizzlies not liking each other from, previous playoff losses and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. That's a good point. I forget that they were once both candidates to win the championship, and that the Grizzlies were irrelevant.
Yeah.
That only a year ago they were second in the West around this time.
Yeah, people were calling them like the front runner in the finals. Funny
it's
how
crazy
work.
It's so crazy. That didn't work out. But we didn't really get to talking that much about
Channing Frye.
Yeah. And again, we'll just kind of reiterate, Foy gives him a piece to potentially play small ball. We'll get to Frye in a second. I just have a few things I want to say about Randy Foy. It kind of gets them ability to play small ball because a lot of times the reason they couldn't isn't because Durant and Ibaka would be a killer front court together. It's because overall it just made more sense to play either Steven Adams or Enes Kanter over two of Morrow, Roberson, Singler, or Waiters, all players who have really glaring flaws. Morrow's being defense, Roberson's being offense, Singler's being everything, and Waiters being
playing,
being Deion Waiters.
And like Foy doesn't entirely change that. I think Steve Adams is a better player than Randy Foy.
Yeah.
And Kanter in his way as well. But they just it gives him another piece. And that's really what you need.
And it's also a question of, yes, Steven Adams and Kanter are better players than Foy, but is Foy good enough so that it's a better overall lineup if you play him and then one of those troubled wing guys, or play Payne at the 1 and Westbrook at the 2, or I guess Foy can't really play the 3, so you would have to eventually play one of those kind of mediocre wing guys.
Yeah.
But you wonder if, now that they have Foy, that is better than playing Adams and Kanter for stretches. And that's something we'll just have to see.
Yeah.
I really don't know how good Randy Foy is at basketball.
Yeah, it gives them another piece. And that's really like, what if you're the Thunder at the trade deadline, is what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So Channing
Frye. Fun fact, only player in the league named Randy.
Oh, that's cool. Cool. Channing Frye.
Yeah.
Cleveland can put out an offensive lineup of Kyrie, J.R. Smith, LeBron, Kevin Love, and Channing Frye.
Yeah.
Which you could, I guess, theoretically 5 out of LeBron doesn't really shoot.
Yeah.
But like it means. But you could have LeBron running pick and pops with like Channing Frye, with Kevin Love, in the corner.
Yeah.
Kyrie and JR doing something, and LeBron can go in the post. Like that offensive lineup is really, really, really hard to guard. Defensively, it's a little but like offensively, that's a really interesting lineup.
Yeah, and it just kind of gives them much more positional versatility if Frye can play the 5 for stretches, something Love has proven unable to do, and that's kind of what they've needed him to do if they're going small to match up against the team in the West that has only lost 4 games.
Yeah.
And maybe, I'm not saying Frye could be as effective on the perimeter, but at least he could provide some rim protection that Kevin Love doesn't. He's very strong. No, he's not strong. Sorry, he's not strong, but he's very long and can disturb players. We really haven't gotten a good chance to see how good of a defender he is on kind of the Magic, and especially since he hasn't played that much. But we'll definitely find out in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's like I said with OKC, it gives them another piece. They don't have. It makes them more versatile. It gives them something because they didn't trade any good roster players. They got rid of Varejao, wasn't doing anything. So they now have another piece they can bring out if they need to. And the way the Warriors have it set up, like they have the best team that we've seen in our lives pretty much. You need to have as many weapons as your disposal to potentially match up with them, and they got another one.
Yeah, definitely.
Will it definitely work? Probably not, honestly. Like in terms of like being the Warriors, but like it helps them clearly.
It seems like the Cavs are just the answer to someone in like 2012's question, how can we best surround LeBron with talent?
Yeah.
Because all these guys, we're not sure if they are currently where their reputation is right now.
Right.
And I don't know if Channing Frye is where. I mean, he's
3 points.
He's been stunning he's been amazing from behind the arc, but it's just, it seems, it's like such a Cavs thing to do. I can't quite put my finger on it, but just like, so they're so name oriented, and maybe you have to be when looking for the sure things just around LeBron. But it just seems like everything they do is just like a Band-Aid where like, oh, we'll get that guy who does that specific thing and has been around the league for knowing to do that specific thing for a while. you just wonder, maybe they have to take a risk on a guy eventually. And I think another great example is trading Wiggins for Kevin Love, because Kevin Love's a thing, and I don't know how founded this point is, but it's just hilarious how afraid they are of names that aren't universally recognized. And skill sets they aren't completely 100% aware of.
Yeah, no, it can be both a good move and a Cleveland move.
Yeah.
I think this definitely fits into the...
And you can argue the opposite, because they took a risk on J.R. Smith, but at the same time...
But that's a name. Everyone knows J.R. Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the move, but it is very much Cleveland being Cleveland.
Yeah.
I thought Toronto not doing anything was interesting.
Definitely. You just wonder how many, easy-to-move assets they really... kind of have.
They were trying to get a power forward and they have the lesser of the Denver Nuggets and Knicks first rounders and Patrick Patterson, and they were offering that.
Yeah.
At the same time, what power forward is that worth giving up? I wouldn't give that up for Kenneth Faried.
Oh no, no. I would much rather have Patterson in today's NBA than Faried, especially since Patterson's making half the amount of money.
Yeah. Who other power forward was gettable?
Ryan Anderson? Maybe?
I'm not doing that for Ryan Anderson.
Yeah,
I'd rather have Anderson than play any defense. I'd rather have Patterson.
Exactly.
Markeith. I'm not doing that for Markeith.
I'd rather have Anderson than Patterson. I think Anderson has the chance to be such a blistering three-point shooter, and he showed it kind of at the end of playing for the Pelicans this season, or the end of before the trade deadline. That I think that while his defense sucks and you can't play him for more than 20 minutes a game if you want to not have terrible defense, I think there is a place in the league as long as you can shoot above 40% from three.
But would you give up Patterson, who's under contract?
I wouldn't give up Patterson in the pick. I would give up one of them, and obviously Pelicans probably wanted both. So, and that's probably one reason why the deal was not made.
Yeah. No, and... Yeah, so it's just too much of a... The Raptors also have their own first-round pickers, and DeLon Wright and other people.
Yeah.
It was a hard question for Toronto, because they could... If you go all in on this year, it's really hard to blame them for that, because, Kyle Lowry is, you don't know how many more years he's going to get this production into Lowry. DeRozan's having the best year of his career. This is the best year that we've seen out of this team. At the same time, if you go all in on this year, and it's probably not going to work, lead to a championship at least,
right,
then you're sitting going, okay, well, why'd we do that?
That's very fair. So it's probably a good idea just to stand pat and keep all your assets, even if we're not even sure that DeLon Wright is an actual person.
Well, right.
The only memory I have of him is, we were watching the Toronto Sports Network stream of the draft, and all the Toronto people were like, okay, yeah, we got DeLon Wright, sure. When Bobby Portis and other well-known, more touted prospects are on the board. So, fun times in Toronto. They just continue to confuse people with the 20th pick overall between DeLon and Bruno Caboclo, neither of which were traded, and probably a good thing. So, we talked about them potentially acquiring Ryan Anderson, and I'd say the real losers, you can make the case for Orlando, but I think the real losers were Pelicans for just not getting a deal done. Maybe because of the turmoil in their front office. Del Demps isn't there. We don't really know who is the general manager.
Yeah.
It might be the blockhead of Tom Benson, but we just don't really know.
Yeah, and, Anderson, with the expiring contract we were talking about before with Howard, it makes teams less interested in him because he's about to get a giant payday in free agency because teams are going to have more money to know what to do with, and you don't want to have Anderson for half a season, lose in the playoffs to the Warriors anyway, and then be like, you either lose him for nothing or pay him $20 million. That's not a...
Is Cleveland going to give Anderson a max contract?
They don't have money.
I know, but they're currently already paying $48 a year for their services at power forward between Love, Thompson, and Channing Frye. So that's pretty much half an NBA
without luxury tax. It's more than luxury tax.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't think he'll go there. But someone's going to overpay for Ryan Anderson.
Yeah, definitely. He's just too much of a name. And some people still think that being able to shoot as a power forward is special for some reason, even though it's pretty easy to find nowadays, and we're proving that you can even play small forwards a lot of the times at power forward. So Ryan Anderson is definitely overrated, and it's just too bad the Pelicans couldn't take advantage of that fact, because he just seems like exactly the kind of guy that a desperate pseudo-contender would give up a lot of, little bit of something for. And even just getting something would allow them to not have Ryan Anderson on their team and get a better draft pick.
Yeah. I think that what might have hurt them was the Tobias Harris trade. Because once Tobias Harris goes to the Pistons...
Didn't hurt anyone else. That's fair. But yeah, I definitely see what you're saying.
But, like, you know, Tobias Harris goes to the Pistons, and all of a sudden a suitor for Ryan Anderson is gone, and you'd obviously rather have Tobias for the next few years and not give up, like, anything in the future than, you know, Anderson for a season, have to pay him and give him stuff for the future.
Yeah.
And... So when that happens, watch for Anderson going to Sacramento this offseason.
Yeah.
He's from the area, and the Kings probably care about that, and no one else might take their money. So I could see them going like all in on Ryan Anderson.
And he fits the way Vivek wants to play, kind of like futuristic run down the floor. We don't think of Ryan Anderson as a fast break player, but he's best catching the three in transition and sinking that baby. Yeah. So definitely something Vivek is going to keep his eye on and give $20 million a year to.
Yeah. I was disappointed the Kings didn't do anything just for like pure comedic purposes. The Kings usually a good bet to do something stupid, and you assume they tried. There's a rumor about them trying to get Pau Gasol, which would be the funniest thing ever. That's not... Pau Gasol's not fixing their problems.
Would Pau Gasol be less happy than he was on the Lakers? I say no, just because...
Yeah, I mean, on the Lakers, he was dealing with, you know, he was friends with Kobe, so I guess not Kobe, but dealing with Dwight Howard, which doesn't seem fun. He didn't seem to like Mike D'Antoni all that much.
Yeah, no.
And, you know,
that's an understatement.
That was a toxic situation. You know, you go to, at the same time, I don't think he'd like George Karl. I don't think he'd like Sacramento. You know, I think he likes LA more than Sacramento. He's a culture guy, and there's not much culture in Sacramento.
Yeah.
No offense, Sacramento.
Sorry, Sacramento.
You have to deal with...
Even Stevens was a great show.
You have to deal with Boogie, who doesn't seem all that fun to play with.
Yeah.
George Karl isn't exactly a player's coach. So I think it could be... I think just the fact that you're in Sacramento instead of LA might push it worse than the Lakers.
Especially when they inevitably sign Earl Clark to start over Pau Gasol because they want to play 4 out. So that wouldn't be fun for him either. And a little bit back to the Pelicans, like... This was kind of their opportunity. I wrote about it for the blog since I am a basketball writer who definitely consistently writes about basketball. I wrote about it in my piece. I call it a piece, too. It was about 1,400 words about the Pelicans, how they should probably trade a lot of their veteran players because Eric Gordon and Anderson are leaving after this season, and... You're not going to want to sign them again if you're the Pelicans. That doesn't make sense for you if you can't even win 30 games this season. And if you're just going to let him walk, then that's a bummer too. And I feel like at least Anderson has value. I don't know how much value Eric Gordon has if he's going to be an average three-point shooter this year after being an elite one last year, very sneakily. So, but at least try to trade them for something, and... Now they're kind of either going to stupidly resign them or let them walk, and they're going to have them on the team for the rest of the year, so they're going to hover around the low 30s in wins as opposed to like really gunning for like low 20s, mid 20s, and getting a top 5 draft pick.
Honestly, like, I'm just impressed that the Pelicans didn't trade their pick.
That's a good point.
Considering their past, like, them holding on to a draft pick is, like, fantastic for their future.
Yeah, I'm glad they did not give up the first-round pick for Rudy Gay.
Yeah, or something like that. Well, I mean, the Kings want a first-round pick, but, yeah, like, there's...
Oh, right, good point. But then, if there's time left in the deadline, they can trade that first-round pick for, maybe...
Ennis Cantor.
Ennis Cantor, yeah. But great compliment to DeMarcus Cousins.
Just, like,
Yeah.
Ooh,
the Kentucky connection. They'll like each other. Because Ennis Cantor played for Kentucky. Well, he didn't actually, because
he went there.
Yeah, he was at What do you think Ennis Cantor did that year?
Went to class like a great student.
You're right. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Are you excited for anything second half of the season? Like, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like, it's not second half, but they call it the second half, but like it's we're like like it's like a third.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how the East shakes up.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of have decided on a few teams being good. the Raptors, the Celtics.
Oh yeah, so we didn't talk. So Celtics didn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, you good job. You didn't you didn't go all in on someone stupid.
Yeah, I'm really thrilled that we didn't trade a first round the Nets pick for Al Horford because that was definitely something I didn't want to happen. I think that unless we're getting Blake, just keep the Nets pick. And we talked a little bit about that last week, 2 weeks ago with Jake. But
are you excited for Kevin Love rumors to happen again this summer when they lose to the Warriors in the finals?
Yes, so we can argue about Kevin Love's merit then, too. And maybe, as I predict, I will have a little bit more ground to work on after he gets carved up in the finals. But that's okay. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it. I think a lot of the mediocre teams will be interesting to watch, mainly the Hornets and the Pistons. I really love the Courtney Lee fit on the Hornets.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty seamless in my opinion. I think it's a great compliment to Kemba Walker. You want a guy who can make threes with some semblance of consistency. Batum is another great compliment with Courtney Lee. That's a very good defensive wing rotation. It would be better if Michael Kidd-Gilchrist was here, but at least they have more offense. And then I guess they can kind of scrape by if Al comes back.
You see what they offered the Houston for Dwight?
No.
Al and Spencer Hawes.
Oh, wow. How did Houston say no to that? Wow. I just want to take the ball as much out of James Harden's hands and put it in Al Horford in the post.
Al Jefferson, even worse.
Sorry, Al Jefferson. I forgot Al Jefferson's last name. But I'm not even kidding because Harden has kind of been bad this season, but we'll talk about that later in another podcast. But it should be an okay rotation. They'll scrape by with their big man rotation of white guys and Big Al. And the Pistons should probably be a little creaky at first. I don't know. It's so hard for me to imagine Tobias Harris on a productive team. So that'll be kind of an adjustment for him.
Yeah.
And
I think there's a world where they miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah, that's fair. And maybe Reggie Jackson just isn't as good as he has been for the first half of the season.
They could, and just you have to get
and maybe
used to your
Drummond's
teammates.
not as good as the first
and
half.
And if, Marquinhos doesn't play, because we don't know if he's healthy.
That's a very good point. And yes, Jennings and Ilyasova were expiring contracts, but they helped them win games.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Ilyasova is going to help you win games. Jennings filled a pretty important piece when he came back, and you just don't have those guys anymore. So in terms of a win now mentality, it might not pay off for a few years.
Yeah. Orlando could be better. Weirdly, just because if Aaron Gordon's
if they don't have to play Elfrid Payton at point guard full time, that'll probably be more conducive to winning games this season. But and Jennings, at the same time, why would you not want to just develop Elfrid Payton?
Yeah, they're not thinking. So we'll see how that goes with them. I just want to watch Golden State.
Yeah.
That team is so good and so fun
we
to
miss them. I feel like the same thing happened last year when we were just we missed the Warriors. Around the trade deadline period, and especially during the summer. And there were so many condescending jokes from their beat reporters, like the insufferable Ethan Strauss, who I actually really like, but he's just the smuggest follow ever. Good writer, though. And he was just Warriors, man. Or maybe something about Zach Lowe saying Warriors woke up from a nap after drinking too many mimosas during brunch at 3 o'clock or something. Something like that. So, Warriors obviously didn't feel the need to make any teams because they don't have to worry about beating the trades because they don't have to worry about beating the Warriors. And
and I feel like any trade they make would hurt them. I can't imagine them improving themselves.
Yeah, and until they sign Kevin Durant, there's not really a good. And you can even argue that they're better off not doing that because it takes the ball out of Steph Curry's hands more than it should. So
that'll be fun in the offseason. But so overall.
Pretty boring trade deadline, pretty all over the place, and really uninspired podcast, but that's okay. I had a good time talking about NBA basketball. And
the next chunk of the season should be interesting. I'm excited to see what happens.
Absolutely.
The fact that the Sixers didn't move Okafor didn't surprise me.
Okay.
I kinda figured
Oh yeah. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So the rumor that Stein said was that we were shopping him around, but we'd only trade him for like a mother load offer, and that's like it makes sense.
Yeah.
You don't trade the third pick on a draft that you have some hope for potential wise going forward, like for 50 cents on the dollar. I think it does say something that he was a name that we heard was floated and not Nerlens.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised to see us move on from him and keep Nerlens long term.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like Nerlens has a better chemistry so far with your guards. Again, that's probably because he's been on the team for longer. He has a whole half a year previous playing alongside Ish Smith. Here's an important question: are you even still enthused about the Cavs?
In terms of watching them,
yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. I want to see their offense with the, Kyrie Smith, LeBron Love Fry, just because that's a really fun offensive team. But they're fine. Yeah. They're really good. They're gonna kill the East playoffs.
They have a bunch of players who I want to but don't.
Yeah, if DeMar Carroll gets healthy for the Raptors, maybe it's an interesting series, but probably isn't.
Yeah.
The
Cavs are kind of at a point in the NBA where they will never play an interesting playoff series because they're too good to have games be interesting in the East bracket, and they're not good enough to have games interesting in the finals. So basically, they are just bad for the league. If you ask me.
In a way, having LeBron will never be bad for the league.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I'm not willing.
Financially, who actually really likes watching LeBron? I mean, I guess I do, but
I will say that I'm not willing to say that they're they have. I don't think they have I guess they're not going to be the Warriors in the finals, but I don't know. I think they could have some exciting.
They could win a game.
Game or two, or maybe three.
I think we're going to see a much better Warriors team than we saw last playoffs because the beginning of the Grizzlies and the Cavaliers series, we saw a Warriors team look kind of lost.
Yeah,
and that won't happen again. They're gonna bulldoze through teams. Steph Curry won't look like he's having a bad day anymore the first couple games.
Yeah, assuming they stay healthy.
Draymond Green's going to have confidence this time around.
Yeah, if they stay healthy, they're winning at least 73 games. Yeah. I don't they have to go 25-5 to win 73.
It's completely attainable.
Which is like a bad month.
And they
for
only
them.
have one real thing that you can call a loss. Isolate the circumstances and call a loss.
Yeah.
Because
the Milwaukee loss was after a double overtime game.
Yeah, they didn't have Steph for the Mavericks loss, and they didn't have Draymond for the Nuggets loss. And also Gallinari stole the ball just like Havlicek. So let's kind of put these in context.
Yeah, this is the greatest.
And they almost lost to the Sixers.
Yeah, the Sixers are a good team.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true.
I'm gonna be excited to see who finishes with the worst record. That's very much what I'm watching the rest of the season.
That's what you're devoting the rest of your time before the playoffs to, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to. What else would I God.
I don't know.
You're going to be watching that as well.
That's a very good point, but at least my team can kind of distract me from the off-season in the sense that, Isaiah Thomas will hopefully continue his quote-unquote all-star season, and Jay Crowder can continue to be the best wing player in the league.
What, you don't think it's fun watching Jahlil Okafor hold the ball for 10 seconds and then throw up a weird shot?
I think that is fun, but when you have a guy who is as good, if not better, than Kawhi Leonard and Jay Crowder on a much better contract, then it pales in comparison.
Alright, we gotta go. I'm hungry and I'm not listening to this.
I think Jay Crowder is probably the best Celtic of all time. Yes, and just because he has dreads, he's automatically as good as Kawhi Leonard and DeMar Carroll because Kawhi has cornrows and DeMar Carroll also has cornrows or dreads or some hybrid of the two.
All right, so we're going to end like this. Give me one word to summarize the trade deadline.
Flaccid.
Shelvin Mack.
That's 2 words.
Oh, yeah. Shelvin.
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 Okay.
All right. Good podcast.